Leo, can you hear us? Leo, can you hear us?
Thank you, everyone. So call to order, and wherever you may be, we welcome you. So before we start our public forum this afternoon, could you please check that your mobile devices are turned to silent? And as is tradition for public meetings and events, for Council to acknowledge country, I'll be using the acknowledgement developed with the Thungari and Dungari people. Kempsey Shire Council acknowledges the land of the Thungari-Dungari Nation. We pay respects to the elders past and present. We acknowledge the role of emerging leaders to continue to guide us in the future. And we acknowledge the stolen generations and the needs to change practices to be inclusive. This land always was and always will be Thungari-Dungari land. So welcome to Public Forum. This is to coincide with the July Council meeting and relates to representation on the agenda item matters for the ordinary meeting of Council, which will commence tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. For this meeting, we have updated our COVID-19 practices to conform with the current orders that are in place within New South Wales. There's no one in the public gallery this evening and no public forum speakers are joining. And we have no public forum speakers in the chambers today. They are joining us by Zoom, and this is a hybrid meeting. It's a requirement that I advise all present that the public forum is being live streamed and your attendance at this meeting is taken as consent to the possibility that your image and or voice may be recorded and broadcast to the public via our live stream. So now I call on any conflicts of interest declarations. Is there any conflict of interest declarations, Councillor McGinn?
Yes, thanks, Madam Mayor. Conflict of interest, non-significant. I think, do you have
significant non-pecuniary?
Okay, well, it's 10.2. We lease a riverbank from the Kempsey Shire Council, so thought I should declare that. And also 11.1, non-significant, non-pecuniary, as I'm known to one of the parties.
There's no more declarations. The General Manager will outline the guidelines for public forum.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just for our three speakers, you I think already would be aware of most of this, but I'll just read from the Code of Meeting Practice. Each speaker is allowed 5 minutes. This time will be enforced by the chairperson. You will hear Daniel will come in and say 1 minute when there's 1 minute left for your presentation. Speakers of the public forums must not digress from the item on the agenda for the council meeting that you've applied to address. If a speaker digresses to irrelevant matters, the chairperson is to direct the speaker not to do so. If the speaker fails to observe a direction from the chairperson, the speaker will not be further heard. A councillor, including the chair, may, through the chairperson, ask questions of a speaker following their address at the public forum. Questions put to the speaker must be direct, succinct, and without argument. Speakers are under no obligation to answer the questions, but answers are to be kept to 1 minute. Speakers at public forums cannot ask questions of council, councillors or staff. When addressing the council, speakers of public forums must comply with this code and all other relevant codes and policies. Speakers must refrain from engaging in disorderly conduct, publicly alleging breaches of council's code of conduct or making other potentially defamatory statements. If the chairperson considers that a speaker at a public forum has engaged in the type of conduct referred to above, the chairperson may request the person to refrain from inappropriate behaviour and to withdraw or unreservedly apologise for any inappropriate comments. Where the speaker fails to comply with the chairperson's request, the chairperson may immediately require the person to stop speaking. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, General Manager. So we do have 4 public forum speakers joining us today by Zoom. 3, sorry. Item 9.4, planning proposal, Neville Morton Drive, Crescent Head. We have Anastasia Guys speaking against. Item 19.1, Crescent Head Public Domain Plan Foreshore, Joshua Dennis speaking against, and Paul Haler for. Okay, we do have Anastasia on Zoom at the moment, so you may begin whenever you're ready, Anastasia.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and councillors, and thanks for this opportunity to address the forum. Can everyone hear me and or see me okay? Is that all good?
Yeah, it's loud and clear.
No worries. Just to keep to the 5 minutes and to stay on topic, I've just prepared something written and then I'm happy to take questions. My name is Anastasia Guys. I'm an ecologist and a journalist, and I'm a director of Barangi Cooperative, which owns land directly to the north of the proposal that is under consideration here. So this includes lots 19, 46, 47, 129, 154 and 253 in DP 754400. I bring an objection personally, as well as on behalf of Barangi Cooperative Limited, and in my capacity as a director of the cooperative, and I'll speak from these positions interchangeably throughout my address. The objection is fourfold, and it echoes the points put forward in my submission in November of 2018, which is provided with the agenda for the upcoming meeting tomorrow. And these are summarised as follows. 1, this proposed rezoning will sever physical access to our lands to the north, and retention of this access is crucial for us to adequately carry out bushfire mitigation activities and for emergency egress and for access by the RFS. And provision must be made for physical access to properties to the north. Secondly, the proposed development is not compliant with Planning for Bushfire Protection 2006 as I read it, and possibly, if that were the case, would endanger public safety. Number 3, as an ecologist, in my opinion, the potential impacts on a significant coastal wetland under the Coastal Wetlands 2018 SEP are not adequately mitigated. And I find issue with the piecemeal or spot rezoning, which is in contravention of the spirit and the integrity of broad environmental zoning, in particular the coastal wetlands policy. And so I'll just quickly go into those points in more detail. So Barangi Cooperative lands are bisected by a mountain range, Dalcongai Mountain and Lower Range Hill. And so these are forested lands and they require ongoing bushfire prevention activities, particularly because they link up with large tracts of Melaleuca forest down towards Hat Head National Park and down towards the coast. In the black summer, some of these peat swamps were some of the longest burning fires over that season. For example, some of those peat fires in Port Macquarie burnt for 4 months without stop. So it's a serious bushfire hazard zone. Firefighting access was crucial in providing the fighting of the fires and emergency egress. Historically, in the 1950s, a drainage canal called Scott's Drain was actually constructed through in a north-south direction, which severed our rightful and legal access to our lots of lot 19, 46, 47, 129 and 253. And this access was never redressed. And so the only practical access then to those eastern portions of our lands, to the direct north of this proposed, this rezoning site, is through, it has historically been through and is through what then became Neville Morton Drive. I note in response to my submission that I submitted in November 2018 that it was noted that Berries Lane is said to be our legal access, but this is not the case for these eastern lots. Berries Lane provides access only to lot 67 via a 4-kilometre dirt road. If this rezoning were to be approved without provision of physical access, and I'm making a distinction here between legal access and physical access. The legal access is not within this jurisdiction right now, can be left to later, but physical access for firefighting purposes in particular is really important. A situation of landlocked parcels would be created unjustly and, in my opinion, illegally, and it would impact on our ability to rightfully access and utilise our lands. Moreover, the threat to public safety in the event of a bushfire is unacceptable, as I see it, and would create the inability for Barangi Cooperative to reasonably, safely and effectively carry out our hazard reduction activities. I believe it's the job of planners and consent authorities to look broadly at the landscape at issues like this and ensure that this situation doesn't come about of creating these landlocked parcels. This leads to my second point, and that is that the proposed development would seem inconsistent with some of the Planning for Bushfire Protection 2006. If the development is greater than 200 metres, I quote, from a main road or refuge, a second access is required. It's the Bushfire Protection Act. And so with multiple cul-de-sacs, one-lane roads and a number of deeply cut drains throughout the estate, in conjunction with the cutting off of this physical access to all the properties towards the north, this creates a really troubling situation in terms of bushfire. I have two more points. In regards to the environmental, ecological conditions, I am certainly concerned that this amended proposal does not take into account the recommendations of the BCD, and that's on the agenda at page 37. It states that. I'd also like to add that I've owned the lands directly to the north of this proposed site since I was 19 years old, and I have seen ongoing and unacceptable ecological degradation, and I feel that the proposed rezoning is simply a continuation and a facilitation of genuine ecological degradation of both koala habitat, which was once quite good, and also the wetland.
Thank you very much, Anastasia. I did neglect to say that you were representing also the Barangi Cooperative Limited.
No problem. I have a couple more points. If I could apply for another minute, would be fantastic.
At this point, with the new Code of Conduct, Code of Meeting Practice and Forums, we don't allow extension. That may be able to come up if there's any questions that are being asked of you. So I will just take questions now.
No problem. Happy to answer any questions.
Councillor Patterson, and then I'll take Councillor Baxter and that Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, Councillor Patterson here, Anastasia. Could I just ask you to go a little bit more in depth in what type of things that you do to hazard reduction for bushfires? What can you go a little bit further into that?
Sure. So hazard reduction activities for us would be, for instance, understory vegetation clearing, weed management, particularly lantana, hazard reduction burns and or ecological or cultural burns, other ecological activities which are consistent, which might just be ecological activities, but they're consistent with bushfire mitigation, fire breaks, all of those things would constitute hazard reduction or bushfire mitigation activities. But access is really key, absolutely key to all of those.
So another question. So you would find that you had less access for if this development went through, the rezoning went through?
Absolutely. Now, I know that there have been more components to this rezoning broadly over the years, and that I know that this proposal only relates to a small amount of a small number of lots towards the southeastern, northeastern end of this site. I understand that, but the way in which the lots have been placed at the end of this parcel of land, they've been placed in a way which aligns in a perpendicular to our boundary line and to the trajectory of Neville Morton Drive, so that a Crown road easement which runs along that boundary line is now, I don't know if that Crown road easement has been sold off or severed or is discontinued, but on my mapping that I've known about for the last 20 years, there's a Crown road easement that exists and goes up to the Trig Point on Dalcongai Mountain. And so the way these lots are placed, it completely and utterly physically inhibits and obstructs the access from Neville Morton Drive and the public road into that Crown Road Reserve and into our lands, which has historically been used as a physical access for all kinds of activities, including back in the day for actual physical access for somebody's dwelling.
Thank you for that answer.
Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Anastasia, just going back to the access question, have you spoken to your neighbour who's doing this development about giving you an access corridor?
Look, many throughout the years, there have been multiple attempts in all different avenues to secure this access in a more permanent fashion. What Barangi Cooperative and myself believe is that it shouldn't be up to us to broker a deal of some kind to actually be able to utilise what should be a rightful and legal physical access to undertake weed and bushfire mitigation activities. And really, we believe a rightful and legal access, given that the access to all those eastern portions of our land were severed by the construction of a drainage canal, and that access was never restored. We have in the past been approached by some and offered the purchase of an easement, but we considered that for an astronomical amount of money in those days, just by the way, it wasn't anything obtainable, the price, and we considered that we shouldn't have to buy our rights, that those rights actually already exist.
Okay, thank you.
Anastasia, I just have Councillor Horval. Councillor Horval, your question.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, thank you, Anastasia, for your presentation. As an ecologist, what relevance do you think there is to having the wetland buffer being impacted by this development?
Well, that was another point, and there is some talk about that in my submission that is there publicly available. You can read. I am not the ecologist who wrote the report for this. I'm not in any authority about this particular project, but just from my work experience, I understand that buffers such as these are designed to protect wetlands, and in my professional opinion, having dwelling houses right up onto buffer zones or even into buffer zones is it actually defeats the purpose of what buffer zones are about. And so I do note that in this proposal, for example, it is noted that there is plenty of footprint on the proposed lots that dwelling houses can be constructed away from the wetland, and I'm sure a development application would hopefully see that through. However, I think the other associated activities with just domestic living, such as mowing, sheds, domestic activities right up to those wetlands don't constitute the right kind of buffer zone that is required under ecological conditions to protect wetlands. I will just say one thing. With my original submission, I submitted a map from showing the sea level rise predicted for 2100, which actually isn't that far away, and that brings sea level rise right up above that wetland line, above the buffer zone, and into, it would probably flood lots 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, and if 14 still exists, I'm not sure if you've taken 14 in or out, so 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 would all be under the sea.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. The other question I'd like to ask, you refer to, no, actually, it won't be a question to you, Anastasia. I guess there are 4 maps referred to in your submission.
Yes.
I don't remember seeing them. Maybe the director or the general manager might tell me where I would see those maps.
Just to answer quickly, yes, that is a question, I guess, for staff, but I did find them. So through the council website, when I went to this agenda and then I clicked on the PDFs for this item, I did actually find
your maps,
my submission and my maps, I believe, as a PDF.
Okay, thank you very much for that. A final question, if I could, Anastasia. Yep. How do you and your members of the Barangi Cooperative access your land at this time?
So at the current time, we access the western portion of our land through Berries Lane, which is the legal access to lot 67. And from there, there is a rough track to the top of the mountain and a rough track down the other side of the hill. But it is dependent on the weather, and it's certainly not considered a legal access, we've been told, through a Crown Reserve to those eastern portions. So to access those eastern portions of Barangi Cooperative, we walk, or we have historically used through Neville Morton Drive and across that property on a historical access. We have used that in situations of hazard reduction or weed control or contractor entry upon agreement.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
So, Anastasia, just to clarify, do you have legal access to Neville Morton Drive?
This is a very long-running saga with a very long backstory. We've been told we do not, but we completely dispute that notion, and we continue to dispute that notion. So legal access has not been granted, but nor has it been provided. So we're in a situation where potentially we are landlocked on that side, and our argument is maintained that because access to those eastern portions was severed by a canal and never restored, the Public Works Act requires that access be restored. It has never been restored.
Thank you. We have some more another question from Councillor Morris.
Yes.
Anastasia, just a quick question. If access isn't restored or isn't provided, what is likely to happen to the land that you are claiming will be landlocked over, say, in the next 5 or 10 years? What will the fire hazard situation be like? If you can't get there to do fire mitigation works, what will the fuel load, in your opinion, develop into? And with the works with the channel that was constructed, what could be done to restore access at that point?
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Look, this is another key point in my submission. The fuel loads in those lots north of this proposed development, north of the current housing in this area, will become overgrown, they'll become dangerous, and this is exactly my point as to why we cannot obstruct physical access here. Forget legal access, let's just talk about physical access. It'll be weedy, overgrown, a fire hazard from the northwest, from the northeast. We've had bushfires in there, and it has been crucial that firefighting access is maintained. So what was your second question, Councillor Morris, please? Sorry.
What would be required to be undertaken to provide access where the channel cut the access?
The access across Scott's Drain and through that coastal wetland is never going to happen. It's now impossible. So in the 1950s, once that canal was constructed, you would have to build a raised road and a bridge across the canal from Loftus Road, and it's just completely impracticable. And I don't think any authority would ever consent to building a road and a bridge through that coastal wetland. I mean, that would be a very ecologically spurious development to do through there. So the most practicable, and we believe legal access, is straight through from Neville Morton Drive to our lands.
Why would it need to come from Loftus Road, not from the west as opposed to the east?
Look, access could be constructed from the west. It obviously is going to cost more than what is more easy and more practicable on the east.
Okay.
The other issue is that for development of those lands, which has rural RU2 zoning and dwelling entitlements, is that a through road would more than likely be the safest way to ever develop that property in terms of bushfire as well. So you would come in the west, over the mountain, down and out through Neville Morton Drive would be the most practicable access. That may never happen, but physical access, some form of physical access, must be maintained for emergency services at the very least. My second point about that, sorry, just quickly, is that access could be built and provided from the west to those lots, but that is unjust in the sense that those eastern lots had access that was severed by a public authority and has never been restored. That is what is unjust about the situation. So the cost would be borne by us and the injustice.
Councillor McGinn.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. My question to Anastasia is, because I'm unfamiliar with the Barangi Cooperative, what is the Barangi Cooperative and what do you exist for?
Thank you. So the Barangi Cooperative was formed in about 99, 2000, 98 maybe, and it was formed as a rural land sharing cooperative under the old SEP 15 legislation, and it provided multiple occupancy for a whole bunch of people to purchase a really beautiful piece of coastal land. That was then affordable because they all grouped together to buy the land. There were 80 members at that stage. It's now down to about 60, 65. And the purpose is to provide low-cost rural housing for its members in line with the ecological integrity of the land. So that's always been our purpose.
And can I just ask a follow-up question? How many people actually live in the cooperative lands that you own?
No people legally live on the cooperative lands at the moment. The development has been inhibited by lack of access and a lack of development consent. Yeah, that's all I'll say.
Thank you, Anastasia. There's no more questions, so we will go on to our next. No, there is no more questions, so thank you very much.
No problem.
And we'll move on to our second speaker for today. And you're quite welcome, I think, to stay on the line, which is Joshua Dennis. Welcome, Josh. Josh,
thank you.
It's representing the Crescent Head residents and ratepayers foreshore planning committee and the Save Crescent Head Surf Reserve.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, councillors. Here we are again. It's a year later. So we've spent a year writing letters, raising petitions, having rallies, protesting to the council, trying to show both the councillors and the planning department just how important this foreshore area is to the community, the village atmosphere, and just as it is as a national surfing reserve. It's not just us, but there's so many people that come and enjoy this area and have a long history of coming here. And as you can see here, so the planning department have provided us in this latest review 4 options, which are almost identical. You know, this is none of these actually address the concerns that we have. They're all, as we said, they're all within this tiny little box that we've been given from the start. Do not go outside this box. This is your box. And here we are, option 4, which is the preferred option from the planning staff for the councillors today to approve. And for me, these 4 designs, as I am an engineer with 20 years experience, they're just very, very lazy. It appears to me, as my opinion, that the council planning staff have taken the path of least resistance, and that is to just work within this small box. And for us, it's just not good enough. We've asked for a holistic plan that considers the whole area, it future-proofs Crescent Head, that retains the foreshore, that's loved by so many of us, and that really is an integral part of the community. But council has clearly said no. We don't value the surf culture. We don't value the way we use the space, and we don't value people's opinions. For me, it really appears that there is a definite conflict of interest here, where council have a financial interest in in the caravan park, which is really stopping any real alternative design. When we had our surf rally there, our protest back in April, which a number of the councillors attended, and thank you to them. When they actually were there and they sat in the space, they start to come up, be creative, and they say, I think Councillor Patterson said, well, what about we put a link road? Where's the link road? One of the other councillors said, how about we pull the whole car park back and have more space? Where are these options? Where are the options? Where's the link road option? Where's the option of the car park pulled back 5, 6, 7 metres? There is none. There's only one option: remove the car park. We as the Crescent Head Ratepayers Association were under the impression that the design was going back to the planning staff, and then there'd be engagement within the community. And that just doesn't really appear to be the case. Council staff are recommending option 4. However, people just keep coming up to them with all the problems they see. As you can see, there's no traffic flow. You come in there, there's a sharp right turn by the looks of it. As you come up to the boat ramp, you're going to have to put your blinker on there to turn up. There's going to be a bottleneck up at the surf check. Every person will come and stop there and try and look at the surf. It just doesn't solve any problems. There is a better design, is a better solution there, but it needs some real thought and it needs some consultation. I asked the councillors, as our elected representatives of our community, not to approve this option 4. Do not be pressured into making decisions that will dramatically affect our community and the visitors of this area. We, the Crescent Head Ratepayers, have already started a working committee, and we asked the council to convene a working group. We want to work with the planning staff. We want to work with you to try and do this properly. We don't want to repeat a Plummer Road. We don't want this to drag on forever, but we cannot have this approved now. We want to work with you, and let's start a working group. And let's get this done. Let's get this done properly, but let's not rush this through. It does not need to be rushed through for some grant that does not exist. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Mr. Joshua Dennis. Is there any questions? Yes, Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Josh, for your presentation again. Josh, in conversation the previous meeting when this was up, you were showing me some plans of possible outcomes of car park arrangements that you thought were quite suitable. Have you been able to transfer those over to the planning department?
If you jump onto the next slide, this was a markup that we did a year ago, which many people don't actually want because they want to retain it. But this was just one option that we came up with at an hour's notice, which has sort of the existing car park as almost identical as to what we see today. But then we retain some of the foreshore. We have back-to-back car parking. But why is this option not part of it? This was given to the planning staff. And it's my opinion because it's too hard. It's going to take effort. It's going to need consultations with, Melinda Pavey's office. It's going to need a bit of work. But we need a good result here. There's also the option of actually pulling the whole car park back. There's so many things. It's just. But as for your question, we have more work to do. This has been a bit rushed, and but we're working on designs. But we actually don't want to just come up with a design and hand it to you and say that's it. We'd rather work with you and say, well, how about this, or this?
Just one other question, Josh. Do you think it's right that council staff do designs and put them in front of councillors to make decisions on, or not to make decisions on, or to move forward with? Do you think it's right that they do that?
I couldn't see any other way than doing that. I guess. That is the process, I guess, of coming up with designs. But that there does need to be some community consultation and not be sort of rushed through like this. I think this is a pretty important issue that needs a bit more than 10 days notice to say sign it off.
And just another thing too, you were saying that you drew up this plan on basically an hour's notice. Have you been able to work on anything since then?
The Ratepayers Association, we've been meaning to, and this is my fault, we've been meaning to ask for some survey from the council. We need the digital survey so that we can actually start working on this area, and at our cost, we'll cover it. We'll see what we can come up with as an alternative. But we're going to look at the whole area. We're not going to be boxed into a corner, because that's the way you have to do it.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
We have questions from Councillor Horval.
Thank you, Josh, for the presentation. Option D I haven't seen before, and it's got some interesting pluses and negatives too, I guess. Would that roundabout in your option D, could it be moved even further to the east? Would it be impacting the golf course much if you actually went past the boundary of the caravan park? Would that be
just to reiterate, this is just one option to show that there are many options which haven't been considered. So I'm not saying this is my preferred option or anyone that is part of the group. But that viewing area that you talk about, the surf viewing area, that could be at the end of the cul-de-sac, where the cul-de-sac is now. It would be more of a cul-de-sac than a viewing area, I would think.
Okay, and at the present time where the foreshore car parking is there any benefit in safety to have those cars with people in them watching the surfers? Is there any safety benefit to what's going on out on the water?
I think that there's definitely the safety aspect for people being able to sit there and watch their children or watch their husband or their wife surfing. That's a definite, and I think in this latest with the shark attack, that people were up there beeping the horns and everyone sort of saw it, and that's what it is. It's a spectator sport. People come, they sit and they watch, and you've got 56 viewing areas, natural sort of amphitheatre spots there, and it works really well.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Josh.
Thank you.
Mark, Councillor Baxter.
Thank you, Chair. Josh, looking at option D there, it seems to be ringing a bell. You looked at the traffic management report 2019, the council's traffic management report. I think that report recommended something extremely similar to this.
Yeah, we had to tweak it. We had to actually fix the curve as you drive in to make it flow. If you look at the flow of this road and you look at the flow of the approved, what you're trying to get through, you'll clearly see that the one that option 4 has no flow. That's probably because you've jammed in 130 car spaces into an area, so it's always going to be difficult to sort of get a flow. I acknowledge that this area is a triangle as such, and the car park, as they've put it, is on an angle. But our big thing is there is many options here, not just the one option, and that's all we're asking for. We do all love the car park. We love the foreshore. It works really well. We could pull it back 6 metres, 5 metres, 10 metres, whatever people want, to create more space with this open space.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Councillor Morris.
Josh, just a couple of quick questions on your option D. Roughly how many car parking spaces are there?
There was actually a few more than 130. We've got 130 there, but there was there was quite a few more, and you could see it's missing on the left-hand side up near the skate park. There's no car parks there, so there's probably quite a few more than the 130 which it says there.
How much space is there, or how much additional space is there for the playground area?
It's probably very similar to. It's almost identical to one of the options in the previous round of iterations. So there's plenty of space there.
So it's considerably increase in space.
Yeah.
And I note that there's no access to the boat launching ramp. Is that?
No, there's still access there. It's actually a hatched orange area that's sort of delineated. So that was one of the previous designs. I mean, the problem is, as we all know, the planning staff know, that the problem is up on the far end, it's a very narrow throat. So you can see that I've got back-to-back car parking there, which you can see there makes sense. But what that does do, there is an encroachment of 8 metres there. So into the existing Crown land beyond the fence. So that's why all these are too hard. No one wants to go near them because they're in the too hard basket. But to do it properly, that's what we need to do.
Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Josh, just another question in relation to the skate park that's predominantly taking up quite a bit of space there. And you're saying that you're being a member of the ratepayers and the surf community down there. What sort of objections or ideas have you had about moving that, out of that frontal area of the surf and maybe putting it over more towards the caravan park or perhaps around the creek? Has there been any response or any talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, we as a group, we actually really still like the idea of that park continuing past the new toilet block that you kindly built and going down and taking out a few of those new safari tents. That's why we fought so hard to stop those safari tents, because we really believe that the park should continue down there under the trees. And then what that would give is adequate space for that skate park to move, perhaps into that area, so it would all be together. And to me, that makes sense to have the park, the skate park, all side by side. But that in itself needs planning, needs some thought. And that's why I didn't want those safari tents there, because now that area is sort of gone.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Josh. There's no other questions, that I don't believe. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I'd just like to say, we'd just like to put the olive branch out. I know this has been a tough battle, but we do really want to work with council. We do really believe that this is the right thing. And hopefully everyone will make the right decision.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our third speaker today is Paul Haler, who will be representing the Crescent Head Progress Group, and he will be speaking for 9.1. Thank you, Paul.
Paul, you're on mute still. You there, Paul?
Are you there? Mr. Haler.
Just be patient. We maybe some technical issues there. We're just texting Mr. Haler.
Right, can you hear me?
We can now.
Sorry about that. All right, can you hear me all right? Yeah. Yep.
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Look, before I present it, I just wanted to just make a note that we had an important member of our community pass away late last week in Brian Jackson, who was a long-standing member of the community, both here and in Cronulla. So I just wanted to make a public announcement about a very important member of our community. Okay. Thank you for allowing me to present this afternoon, and I am presenting on behalf of the Crescent Head Progress Group, of which there are approximately 95 participants, and I'm presenting also on behalf of my usual quiet people. After reviewing all the options, we needed to ensure the underlying improvements were an advantage and achieved the outcomes. We're working totally within the framework that was given to us by council and across the project, rather than outside of it, or even discussing. I can't believe we discussed then for 10 minutes an option that was out of scope. Anyway, we wish to endorse the comments at the last meeting where Councillor Patterson suggested by questioning the council were experienced and have the resources to ensure that the community was at the centre of any project, and that the council staff were of course competent in that. We also noted Councillor Baxter's fear of the next 30 to 50 year plan for the area. In essence, the need to ensure it to be future proof. Bearing this in mind, the key areas to the requested compromise was in effect, 1, not enough parking area on one side, and 2, open space for the public, particularly families, to spread out and relax on the foreshore of two opposing sides. Taking parking areas to concern, the following is noted. The option for most area and spaces for parking is option 4 at 133. It allows, including trailer and long vehicle options. In addition to that, it offers a massive 5,010 metres of car park area. It also has a viewing turning area, which technically allows for about 129 vehicles to check out the surf over time. If good, then find a parking spot. It also allows people to be dropped off and picked up from. So there's an area, a circle or a drop-off area and a viewing area. You like the surf, you park. If you don't like the surf, you move on. Option 1 is the only option that allows the turning circle, but this doesn't accommodate enough parking spots that are in question. Taking open areas of concern, that is the green spaces, plainly the most green open space is in option 3, where there is a massive 9,692 square metres on offer. Option 1 also has larger open space, but far less parking availability at 111 spaces. Option 2 and 3 have no availability to accommodate a visual check or drop-off point, a drop-off point, so may cause congestion. Important issue in regards to the 30 to 50 year planning. If we take this into account, then there are 2 factors that need consideration on the foreshore: sustainability and infrastructure. Anastasia, in a presentation at number 1, said the sea level in another 80 years is going to be up somewhere up near Dalkenguy. Picture that. Essentially, the foreshore will meet sustainability requirements if more areas made open, that is, in open green areas. Should sea levels rise or severe weather events arise, then by having these types of spaces, it will not endanger the life of property. Repairs to infrastructure such as car parks would be a debt loaded onto future generations. Holistic view. Racecourse Beach is now 8.5 minutes from Crescent Head foreshore, only 8.5 minutes. It can also be included as a second surface car park or beachgoers' paradise for Crescent Head. Given the investment in Plummer Road via road infrastructure, this should be included in considerations as we have done. In other words, holistic. There are 22 car spots directly facing the ocean. There are, in addition to this, 13 car spots that are parallel parking that have clear views of the Surfing Ocean. When you start adding this to the equation, quite plainly there is room for all. In conclusion, we believe we have compromised. We've given away square metres for parking spots. We've accepted the smallest square meterage on all options, on all the 4 options. We've considered the future. We've considered what the staff have put in and what they put before councils. And we have offered real alternatives in terms of looking to racecourse. Let's not get, it's more holistic. And as such, we strongly recommend option 4. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Haler. Is there any question? Councillor Saul.
Thank you, Mr. Haller. As a member of the society out there and of the different groups, the importance of green space, how important is that to the community of Crescent Head?
Well, very, very important. As I say, we seem to be forgetting this whole project isn't the last 5 minutes. It hasn't been rushed. It goes back to 2017. It's progressed since then. Now, of course, people couldn't get there. Well, tough luck, really. But plainly in the master plan and plainly at the project meetings and plainly as the project was designed, people wanted open space. It's in the master plan. They want open meeting spaces, and this is ultra important to the people out there.
Also, Mr. Haler, you were on the committee with the master plan. Can you feed us back? Can you also make comments on the actual plan itself and how that was a community effort, please?
Yeah, well, I can remember Josh's plan, Dee. It came in after all the other plans had been submitted by council, by the project team. It came in after that. At no time was he or was it involved in the master plan. And the master plan had very strict guidelines on what we could use in area for obvious reasons. It's council's reason. It's there's financial reasons. There's a whole lot of reasons as to why it was put together like it was. But option D was totally and utterly out of scope. At no time in our planning did we ever have an option where you could take away parts of the caravan park or whatever. There was no. We were given the scope. People were there, and people could have turned up for it, but they didn't. So you've got a whole lot of people in this town that are really cheesed off because all of a sudden somebody speaks and we've never heard anything of it before. That's plain just rubbish. So I think council are following exactly what they said they would do, which is to their credit. I endorse Councillor Patterson in that from his last meeting where he said, well, don't you think our people are good enough? I mean, Josh has been an engineer for 20 years. I mean, wow. So, I just think this is getting totally out of hand, but that's not for me to decide. It's up to everybody else to decide. I want to compromise. I want to, the original agreed foreshore plan was changed, or Councillor Baxter asked for it to be compromised, for a compromise. It has been, it's still not good enough. It's a bouncing ball that won't stop, and despite it being public money, people pay taxes for it, people pay rates for it, and as every day goes by, that money becomes less and less and less, and the cost becomes greater and greater and greater. And I don't like my money being dithered about with.
Councillor Morris.
Mr. Hardy, you say that there's 75 odd members of the the Crescent Head Progress Association. Does that organisation have regular meetings, and do they have an executive? And if so, who is on the executive?
Yeah, okay. Well, I'm not here to answer questions on that, but I will. What is it called again?
You called it the Crescent Head Progress Association.
No, I didn't. I haven't said it. I said the Crescent Head Progress Group.
Well, Progress Group then.
Mm-hmm.
Do they have regular meetings? Do they have an executive? And if so, who is the executive?
None of you. Do you want to come and find out? I'll put it to you this way. Yes, they have regular meetings, right? They have broken the model of the broken ratepayers meeting, which has turned into a protest group. And they are a bunch of sensible people that regularly meet, and its administrator is somebody that I totally respect anyway, in Ross Foster. So, is there anything more you'd like to know about them?
No, that's good.
Thank you. There's no more questions. Have you finished? Councillor Holborn.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Haler. You're talking to people, I presume, but you talk about the fact that you've been talking with quiet people. Bit of a mystery to me. If they're quiet, how do you get what they think about this issue?
You really? No, I can't ask you a question. Yeah, I'll answer your question.
What?
That's a ridiculous question.
Yeah. But, Mr. Haler, you're quite at your liberty not to answer anything that you don't wish to, or you can answer.
Yeah.
It's completely up to you.
No, it's just a ridiculous question.
Thank you. Is there any further questions?
One other, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor Holborn.
Mr. Haler, I know you may not have read it, but have you had a chance to read the biodiversity strategy that's coming to council meeting tomorrow?
No, I haven't had a chance to read that.
Okay, no. That's because it's talking about cultural and heritage value in one part and how it must not have adverse effects on changes. My question is, the question is, Madam Mayor, sorry to have a long introduction so I can make it clear. Do you think the present car park along the foreshore has any cultural or heritage value?
None. It has no. I mean, let's not forget the Dungutty people own all of this land. So here you are, us whiteys sort of arguing over it. But if anything, it belongs to the Dungutty people. It has no cultural value. I mean, surfing culture is a misdemeanor. You know, it's a lot of people that enjoy surfing. There is a surfing, what do you call it? Surfing reserve there, but that's in the water. That's the water. You know, the waves. The point is a surfing reserve. But a car park having a cultural heritage or a cultural significance, I don't think so.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Holborn. I don't believe there's any further questions. So thank you, Mr. Haler.
Okay.
That concludes our public forum for this evening. Thank you. Thank you, Josh. And councillors, we'll take a 2-minute break.